The scientific community knew in early 1939 that German physicists had learned the secrets of splitting a uranium atom and were fearful what the Nazi scientists would do with that information. Two great scientists, Albert Einstein, who fled Nazi persecution, and Enrico Fermi, fled fascist Italy, made their way to the United States. Einstein and Fermi encouraged President Roosevelt to develop and research atomic energy. Roosevelt did not see an urgency for this, but agreed to proceed slowly. In late 1941, the American effort began to design and build an atomic bomb. The code name was the Manhattan Project. When Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, and Germany and Italy declared war on the United States 4 days later, everyone began advancing their work on the atomic bomb. It was a nuclear race that no one wanted to lose. The Manhattan Project was based at three universities: Columbia University, the University of Chicago, and the University of California at Berkeley. On December 2, 1942, a breakthrough occurred when Fermi led a group of physicists. The first controlled initial chain reaction was discovered below Stagg Field at the University of Chicago. It was too weak to power even a single light bulb, but it changed the world forever. Former University of Chicago physicist Samuel K. Allison wrote, "At that time, all of us knew that with the advent of the chain reaction, the world would never be the same again." With this discovery, more funds were given to research the Manhattan Project. Advanced quickly. Scientists from our allies in Great Britain and Canada came to the U.S. to join the research and development efforts. Nuclear facilities were built in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Hanford, Washington. Their main assembly plant was built in Los Alamos, New Mexico. Robert Oppenheimer was in charge of putting the pieces together at Los Alamos. The Manhattan Project was top secret. It was critical that it remain secret. Neither the Germans nor the Japanese could learn of the project. President Roosevelt, the Prime Minister Churchill, agreed that Stalin would also be kept in the dark. Because the project was so secret, there was no public awareness or debate. The project was so top secret, not even Vice President Truman at the time had heard of the project. It was not until he became President Truman that he learned of the Manhattan Project. The Axis powers were unaware of the efforts at Los Alamos, but American leaders found out that Soviet spy Klaus Fuchs had made his way into the circle of scientists. On July 16, 1945, at Trinity sites near Alamogordo, New Mexico, Oppenheimer and the scientists of the Manhattan Project were ready to test the first bomb. The device was attached to a 100-foot tower and set off just before sunrise. Scientists and some dignitaries watched from bunkers 9 kilometers away. No one was really prepared for the result. A blinding flash of light, visible for 200 miles, lit up the morning sky. A mushroom cloud reached 40,000 feet below, out of the windows of civilian homes to up to 100 miles away. When the cloud returned to the earth, it created a half-mile wide crater. The tower disintegrated, and the sand turned into glass. The government then had to create a cover-up story, saying that a huge ammunition dump had just exploded in the desert. News was sent to President Truman that the project was successful, and the world had then entered the nuclear age. In the following months, 2 more bombs were produced by the Manhattan Project. The first, using uranium-235, named the Little Boy, was dropped on August 6, 1945, on Hiroshima, Japan. The second, using plutonium, named Fat Man, was dropped on August 8, 1945, dropped on Nagasaki, Japan, forcing Japan to surrender. With the detonation of the bomb, the American public was shocked and surprised at such a top secret project with as much funding and as much employees as the entire car industry existed. The Manhattan Project employed over 120,000 Americans, and nearly $2 billion had been spent on research and development of the atomic bomb. The legacy of the Manhattan Project was not only helped to bring an end to the Second World War, but it also led into the atomic age and determined how the next war, which was the Cold War, would be fought. This project also became a model with the achievement of American science during the second half of the 20th century. Without the Manhattan Project, the Department of Energy and the national laboratories would not exist as they do today. Today, the Museum of Science and Industry, here in Chicago, has a temporary exhibit called Turn Back the Clock. This exhibit opened up discussion and showed visitors of the museum what led to the Doomsday Clock. The Doomsday Clock is a symbol of the 20th century that was started by the scientists of the Manhattan Project, and it matters as much today as it did 70 years ago.